My girlfriend said, "Your family drama isn't my problem." When my brother needed help, I replied, "You're absolutely right." Then her sister got arrested, and I used her exact words. She called me heartless while begging for help. Throwaway because people know my main account and this is going to get messy. TLDR. Girlfriend refused to help my homeless brother citing boundaries. So when her sister needed bail money for hit-and-run charges, I applied her exact logic. Now she's begging me for help while living back with mommy and daddy. All right, Reddit, grab some popcorn and maybe a cold beverage because this story is absolutely wild from start to finish. I, 32 male, live in Arizona. Started 10 years ago as a regular construction worker, making 15 bucks an hour. But I worked my way up through pure determination and long hours to running entire crews for major commercial projects. Pull in about $135,000 a year now, which sounds like serious money, but honestly it's just good income for the massive responsibility I handle daily. Managing 20 guys, coordinating with architects, dealing with city inspectors, making sure projects come in on time and under budget. It's stressful work, but I'm good at it. Bought my house 3 years ago during a brief dip in the market. Nice 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom place in a decent neighborhood with a 2-car garage and decent-sized backyard. Got it for $385,000, which seemed expensive at the time, but now similar houses are selling for over $500,000. Monthly mortgage payment is $2,950, including taxes and insurance, which is manageable on my income, but definitely a significant chunk. Been with my girlfriend Brittany, 28 female, for almost 3 years now. Met her on Bumble back when she was working as what she generously called a lifestyle influencer and social media consultant. What this actually meant was she had about 4,000 Instagram followers and occasionally got free teeth whitening kits or workout supplements in exchange for posting pictures. Real entrepreneurial stuff, you know? Her bio said she was building her personal brand and monetizing her online presence. The reality was she made maybe $200 to $300 a month posting selfies with protein powder. She moved in with me about 10 months ago after her lease was up, and she claimed she couldn't afford to renew at the increased rate. Her rent was supposedly going from $1,200 to $1,600 for a 1-bedroom apartment, which she said was totally unreasonable for someone building their business. I offered to let her move in temporarily while she figured things out, and somehow temporary became permanent without any real discussion. Here's where I should have seen the red flags waving like crazy in a hurricane. Brittany talks constantly about financial independence and maintaining healthy boundaries in relationships, but somehow these important principles never applied when they would benefit her financially. She pays me exactly $450 a month for what she calls her fair share of household expenses. Meanwhile, my actual mortgage payment is $2,950. Utilities run about $300 monthly during summer. Arizona heat is brutal. Groceries usually cost $600 to $800, depending on how often we eat out, plus all the streaming services, internet, home insurance, property taxes, and general maintenance costs. But she's totally independent and contributing equally, according to her. She covers her own car payment and phone bill, which she mentions constantly like it's some huge financial burden she's shouldering. Meanwhile, I handle literally everything else. All utilities, all groceries, all household supplies, every single streaming service we use, going out to eat, which happens at least 4 times a week because she doesn't have time to cook, plus any vacations we take together. Last year, I spent $4,500 on a week in Hawaii that she posted about constantly as living my best life, without mentioning who actually paid for everything. She's always lecturing people about how important it is that couples don't enable each other's toxic family dynamics, and speaks like she has a psychology degree, even though she dropped out of community college after 2 semesters, because the classes were too early in the morning and interfered with her content creation schedule. Her absolute favorite phrase that she uses probably 5 times a day is "that's not my circus, not my monkeys," which she says while scrolling TikTok on the $2,200 sectional couch I'm still making payments on. The thing about Brittany that really gets under my skin is her complete lack of self-awareness about her own situation. She comes from serious money. Her dad owns 4 successful car dealerships across the Phoenix metro area, and her mom has never worked a day in her life. They bought her a brand new Lexus NX 308i for her 26th birthday, retail price around $40,000, and still pay for her health insurance, car insurance, phone plan, and frequently send her emergency money when she's short on expenses. But somehow she's always lecturing other people about standing on their own 2 feet and not relying on family handouts. The complete lack of self-awareness was honestly impressive in its totality. My family situation is pretty dramatically different from her privileged background. Dad died when I was 20. Massive heart attack at 48 while he was working a construction job in 115-degree heat. No life insurance because we couldn't afford it. No savings account because construction workers don't make enough to save much. Mom struggled financially for years afterward and eventually remarried a decent guy named Steve a few years later. But he's got his own kids from his first marriage, and they're dealing with their own financial struggles, including student loans and medical bills. My younger brother Marcus is 25 and works construction like I did when I started out. Good kid who works harder than anyone I know and never complains about 12-hour days in brutal heat. But entry-level construction pay is still terrible. He makes about $35,000 a year, which barely covers basic living expenses in today's economy. He's been trying to save up the $8,000 needed for heavy equipment operator training so he can eventually make decent money. But it's tough when you're living paycheck to paycheck. Marcus has always been the type to figure things out on his own and never asks for help with anything, sometimes to his own detriment. We're close and talk regularly, but he's got that stubborn pride thing where he'd rather struggle alone than admit he needs assistance from anyone. So when he called me 2 months ago, sounding genuinely panicked and desperate, I immediately knew something was seriously wrong because he would never reach out unless it was truly an emergency. The call came on a Tuesday night around 9 p.m. while Brittany and I were watching some terrible reality show she was obsessed with called Love Island, where attractive people with fake accents make drama over nothing. Marcus sounded stressed and defeated in a way I'd never heard before in our entire lives. His voice was shaky, and he kept apologizing for bothering me with his problems. His roommate Jake had suddenly bailed on their lease agreement, with less than a week's notice to move across the country with some girl he'd been dating for maybe 6 weeks. Just packed all his stuff into a U-Haul and disappeared, leaving Marcus completely stuck with the full $1,750 monthly rent on their decent 2-bedroom apartment. No discussion, no attempt to find a replacement roommate, no offer to help with the financial burden he was creating. Just gone. Marcus had been covering the full rent amount for 4 solid months, systematically burning through every penny of his savings account and even selling his beloved motorcycle, a 2019 Honda CB 650R he'd saved 2 years to buy, just to keep from getting evicted. The bike sale got him $6,000, but that money was already gone. The landlord was finally getting tired of the situation and had given him until Friday to come up with the $5,250 he owed in back rent, plus next month's rent paid up front, or face formal eviction proceedings that would destroy his credit for years. The kid was legitimately terrified he was going to end up homeless. He'd been frantically looking for a cheaper place to live, but everything decent required first month's rent, last month's rent, and a security deposit all up front, easily $4,000 to $5,000 total that he simply didn't have after covering double rent for months. The few places he could theoretically afford were either in dangerous neighborhoods or complete dumps with broken appliances and mold problems. He asked if he could borrow $6,000 to get caught up on his current rent and cover moving costs to find something more affordable. Plus, maybe crash in my spare bedroom for a couple months while he got financially stable again. He promised to pay me back as soon as he could and offered to do work around my house to help offset the costs. I didn't even hesitate for a second. It's my little brother, and I had the money sitting in my savings account earning basically nothing in interest. Plus, my spare bedroom was essentially just expensive storage for exercise equipment I never used and boxes of old stuff I should probably donate. Marcus is actually fantastic to have around. He's significantly cleaner than I am, naturally quiet and respectful, and always offering to help with house projects I've been procrastinating on for months. That night after Marcus's desperate call, I mentioned the situation to Brittany while we were getting ready for bed. I figured it would be completely straightforward and non-controversial since she'd met Marcus plenty of times at family barbecues, holiday gatherings, and casual hangouts, and they'd always seemed to get along perfectly fine. He's polite, funny, and generally likable. What could be the problem? Absolutely not, she said firmly, without even looking up from applying her elaborate nighttime skincare routine that costs more than most people's grocery budgets. I stopped brushing my teeth and stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. What do you mean not? I mean, Marcus is definitely not moving in here, and you're absolutely not giving him $6,000 of our money. I was genuinely confused by her immediate hostility. Why not? It's my house and my money from my job. She turned around and gave me this condescending look like I was being completely unreasonable and naive. Because I don't want to live with your brother for months, and because enabling his poor financial decisions isn't actually helping anyone in the long run. His roommate screwing him over and abandoning the lease isn't a poor financial decision on Marcus's part. He should have had a much bigger emergency fund saved up for exactly this type of situation. And getting a two-bedroom apartment he clearly couldn't afford on his own was definitely poor planning and unrealistic. He got the apartment with a roommate who had signed a legal lease agreement. That's completely normal and reasonable planning. Life happens, babe. That's exactly why responsible adults plan ahead for these kinds of contingencies and worst-case scenarios. I'm not going to sit here and watch you throw away $6,000 because Marcus didn't think ahead properly and prepare for obvious risks. I stared at her reflection, trying to process this unexpected cruelty. It's not throwing money away. He's my family, and he'll pay me back when he can. When exactly will that be? He makes what? $35,000 a year at most? You'll literally never see that money again, and you know it deep down. Even if I never get the money back, he's my brother. Family helps family. That's when she really revealed her true character. Your family's financial problems are not my responsibility, Derek. And honestly, they shouldn't be yours either. I've worked really hard to build a stable, drama-free environment in this house. I'm not going to let it get disrupted and ruined because Marcus can't manage his finances properly like an adult. How exactly is my brother staying in the spare room disrupting anything in our lives? Because then I have to deal with his stress, his financial mess, his personal problems constantly. This house is my sanctuary and safe space. I need my personal environment to be peaceful and calm, not filled with other people's drama and crisis situations. Her sanctuary? The house that I pay $2,950 monthly for while she contributes $450? Look, Brittany continued, really getting into her full lecture mode with hand gestures and everything. If you absolutely insist on helping Marcus, despite my clear objections, you could maybe get him a storage unit for his belongings and pay for a few nights at an extended stay motel, while he finds some other alternative arrangements. But he's definitely not moving into this house, and you're absolutely not emptying your savings account for his poor planning. A few nights at a motel? My brother was facing homelessness, and she's suggesting a Holiday Inn Express like that's some kind of generous solution. And if I decide to help him anyway? I asked, genuinely curious about how far she'd push this. Her expression went completely cold and calculating. Then you'll be choosing your brother's problems over our relationship and our future together. And maybe we need to seriously reconsider whether we actually want the same things in life and have truly compatible values for a long-term partnership. There it was. She was actually threatening to end our 3-year relationship over me helping my brother avoid homelessness. This woman who lived in my house paying minimal rent, drove a car her wealthy parents bought her, had health insurance her parents paid for, was lecturing me about financial responsibility while threatening me for wanting to help family avoid sleeping on the streets. I sat there for a long minute processing what she'd just revealed about herself, looking at this person I thought I knew and cared about, who was showing me exactly who she really was when it actually mattered, when someone needed help and it might slightly inconvenience her comfortable lifestyle. You're absolutely right, I said finally, keeping my voice completely calm and measured. Marcus's problems aren't your responsibility at all. She immediately brightened up and leaned over to kiss my cheek with obvious relief. I knew you'd understand once you thought about it logically and practically. That's one of the things I love most about you. You don't let emotions cloud your good judgment when making important decisions. The next morning, while Brittany was at her yoga class, monthly membership that cost $180 which I pay for, I called my bank and arranged to transfer $6,500 to Marcus's checking account. Then I called him and told him to come over that afternoon to move his stuff into the spare bedroom whenever he was ready. When Brittany got home around noon and saw Marcus's pickup truck in the driveway with boxes and furniture in the bed, she completely lost her mind. I thought we agreed he wasn't moving in here. No, you said his problems weren't your responsibility. You were absolutely right about that. So I handled the situation myself since it's my problem to solve. This is my home too. I live here. Actually, it's my home that I own and pay for. You pay $450 a month to sleep here, which doesn't give you veto power over my decisions. You can't just make major decisions like this without consulting me first. Why would I need to consult you about my family and my money? You made it very clear that Marcus was my problem to solve however I wanted. So I solved it. She stormed upstairs and slammed the bedroom door so hard that I genuinely worried about damaging the doorframe. Marcus looked at me with raised eyebrows like, "Dude, what exactly did I just walk into the middle of?" "Don't worry about any of her drama," I told him while helping unload his truck. Her opinion on this matter doesn't actually matter, since it's not her house or her money. For the next 2.5 weeks, Brittany made everyone's life absolutely miserable with her passive-aggressive campaign of psychological warfare. She'd make snide comments about some people not respecting relationship boundaries and feeling like a stranger in her own home whenever Marcus was within earshot. She started spending dramatically more time out of the house, often staying gone from morning until late evening, and made a big theatrical show of staying at her friend Ashley's apartment 3 different nights, complete with social media posts about needing space to think. Marcus felt terrible about the obvious tension his presence was creating and offered multiple times to find somewhere else to stay immediately. But I told him to completely ignore her dramatic behavior. He was family, he was staying as long as he needed, and that was absolutely final. I wasn't going to let her manipulate the situation through emotional blackmail and guilt trips. The ironic thing was that having Marcus around was actually fantastic. He'd get up at 5 a.m. for construction work sites, keep all the common areas significantly cleaner than they'd ever been, and was constantly offering to help with house projects I'd been procrastinating on for months. He fixed my garbage disposal, painted the guest bathroom, and even helped me install new ceiling fans in 2 bedrooms. Plus, it was genuinely nice having family around to watch sports with, play video games, and just hang out without walking on eggshells around someone's mood. But Brittany acted like his mere presence was some kind of personal attack against her and her lifestyle. She'd make comments about not being able to relax in her own space and how some people didn't understand what healthy boundaries meant in relationships. Really mature behavior from someone who claimed to be an expert on psychology and personal development. Marcus found a decent 1-bedroom apartment after 3 weeks of searching and was ready to move out, but I told him to take his time and not rush into anything subpar. The spare room was his as long as he needed it. And frankly, I was enjoying having him around significantly more than I was enjoying Brittany's constant drama and emotional manipulation attempts. 3.5 weeks after Marcus moved in, life decided to test Brittany's precious boundary philosophy in the most ironically perfect way imaginable. It was a Wednesday around midnight when Brittany's phone started going absolutely insane with calls and texts, buzzing and ringing continuously for 10 minutes straight. Her older sister Madison, 30 female, was calling nonstop in what sounded like complete hysterical panic from the fragments I could hear. Madison had been out with friends at some trendy downtown restaurant and decided to drive home afterward, even though she was actively texting someone on her phone while driving. She rear-ended a parked Toyota Camry pretty severely, causing significant damage to both vehicles. Instead of stopping to exchange information like a responsible adult, she panicked about the insurance implications and drove away from the scene as quickly as possible. Unfortunately for Madison, someone in a nearby apartment building witnessed the entire incident and managed to get her license plate number. They immediately called the police with a detailed description of her car and the hit and run. The police tracked her down at her apartment 2 hours later and arrested her for leaving the scene of an accident with property damage, which is a serious criminal charge in Arizona, especially when there's a reliable witness. Hit and run with property damage is not a minor traffic ticket that disappears with a fine. It's a genuine criminal offense that can result in jail time, massive fines, license suspension, and permanent criminal record consequences. Madison was arrested and taken to Maricopa County Jail, and now she desperately needed bail money to get released before her initial court appearance. Brittany jumped out of bed and started getting dressed in complete panic mode, throwing on clothes randomly and grabbing her purse. "We need to go bail her out right now," she said frantically, searching for her car keys. "She can't stay in jail overnight." I stayed comfortably in bed, watching her rush around in crisis mode. "We? Yes, we! Get up and get dressed. Madison needs our help immediately." I looked at her for a few long seconds, then said the exact words I'd been patiently waiting weeks to use. "Your family's financial problems aren't my responsibility, Brittany." She froze completely mid-motion, like someone had pressed a pause button on her entire existence, turned around slowly and stared at me like I'd grown a second head, or started speaking a foreign language. "Are you seriously going to throw my own words back at me right now during a family emergency?" "I'm not throwing anything back at anyone. I'm simply applying your boundary philosophy consistently. Madison's poor decision-making and criminal behavior isn't my emergency to solve. She's sitting in jail right now, and Marcus was about to be homeless and sleeping in his car. You told me to handle it myself because it wasn't your problem. I'm just respecting the boundaries you established. This is completely different from Marcus's situation." "How exactly is it different?" "She made one mistake and needs immediate help. Marcus needed help too, and his situation wasn't even caused by breaking the law. Madison chose to drive while texting and then committed a hit and run. If anyone's completely responsible for their situation, it's definitely her. Brittany just stood there with her mouth hanging open for like 15 seconds, processing the reality of having her own logic applied to her family. Then she started yelling about how I was being petty and vindictive while her sister was sitting in county jail, and how could I be so heartless during a genuine family emergency? I'm not being petty at all, I said calmly, while staying comfortable in bed. I'm being perfectly consistent with your established principles. Your family, your problem, your money to solve it. I believe bail bondsmen accept credit cards for payment. She called me every horrible name she could think of, then stormed out into the night. Came back around 7 a.m. looking completely exhausted and emotionally defeated. Turns out Madison's bail was set at $18,000, which meant Brittany had to put up $1,800 cash for the bail bondsman plus provide collateral, money that came directly out of her savings account that she'd been building for her business ventures. Brittany gave me the complete silent treatment for 4 solid days after the jail incident. Honestly, I didn't mind it at all. The house was peaceful and quiet, and Marcus and I got to catch up on shows and sports without constant commentary about everyone's life choices and relationship dynamics. But then Madison's court date got officially scheduled, and the harsh reality of the situation started hitting everyone involved. This wasn't just a simple traffic ticket that would disappear with a small fine in traffic school. Hit and run with property damage and an eyewitness? That's potentially serious jail time, definitely a suspended driver's license, massive fines and restitution payments, and her car insurance would almost certainly drop her completely while flagging her as high risk. Madison was going to need a real criminal defense attorney, not just an overworked public defender who had 30 minutes to read her case file before court. Good attorneys for this type of case typically cost $15,000 to $25,000, depending on how aggressively they fight the charges. Thursday night, Brittany tried a completely different strategic approach to the situation. She made my absolute favorite dinner: perfectly grilled chicken with garlic mashed potatoes and roasted vegetables, and even opened an expensive bottle of wine she'd been saving for special occasions. Should have been my first obvious clue that something major was coming, since she usually just microwaved leftover takeout for dinner. "Babe, I've been doing a lot of serious thinking about what you said the other night," she started, using her sweetest, most manipulative voice while pouring wine. "Oh, really? What kind of thinking?" I know I was probably too harsh and unfair about Marcus's situation when he needed help, but Madison's legal case is genuinely serious. She could actually end up in jail for months. Marcus was going to end up homeless and sleeping in his car. You said that wasn't our problem to worry about. I was wrong about that, okay? I admit it completely. But can't we help both Marcus and Madison now? With what money? You specifically said I was throwing away $6,000 on Marcus because he should have planned better. That's different now that I understand the situation better. Family helps family when there's a real crisis, right? I completely agree with that philosophy. That's exactly why Marcus is living here rent-free, and I gave him the money he needed without expecting it back. I mean all our family. You, me, Marcus, Madison, everyone who matters to us. Madison isn't my family, Brittany. Honestly, you're not even technically my family since we're just dating without any legal commitment. That comment hit her like a physical slap across the face. She got really quiet for a minute, clearly trying to process the reality check about our actual relationship status. So you won't help her at all, even knowing she might go to jail? Your family's financial problems aren't my responsibility. Those are your exact words from when Marcus needed help, not mine. She spent the next 10 days trying absolutely every angle and manipulation tactic she could possibly think of. First, Madison called me directly, with a tearful apology explaining how sorry she was and how she'd learned her lesson about texting while driving. Then Brittany's mom called to give me a guilt trip about how much they'd always loved me and considered me part of their family. Her dad even tried the man-to-man approach about how real men take care of family, and family sticks together during tough times. Every single time anyone called, I gave them the exact same response word for word. Your family's financial problems aren't my responsibility. Meanwhile, Marcus was absolutely thriving in every way. He'd found a fantastic studio apartment in a safe neighborhood for $900 monthly and would be moving out at the end of the month. He'd also gotten accepted into the heavy equipment operator training program that started in 6 weeks and was genuinely excited about his future career prospects. Kid was happier, more confident, and more optimistic than I'd seen him in years. Success breeds success. But Madison's legal situation kept getting progressively worse as more details emerged. She'd missed several days of work for court appearances and attorney consultations, and her employer was asking uncomfortable questions about the criminal charges. The property damage to the other car was more extensive than originally estimated, and the car owner was pushing prosecutors for maximum penalties, including jail time. Brittany's parents had managed to scrape together some money by selling stock investments and liquidating a CD, but they still needed another $8,000 to hire the criminal defense attorney Madison needed, someone who might be able to negotiate a plea deal that wouldn't include actual jail time and might minimize the license suspension. That's when they decided to coordinate a full family intervention designed to pressure me into paying. They invited me over for Sunday dinner, which seemed completely normal since we'd done that many times before over the years. But when I walked into their house, Madison was sitting at the kitchen table actively crying with a stack of legal papers and bills spread out dramatically in front of her for maximum emotional impact. "Derek," Brittany's dad said in his most serious, authoritative voice, "we need to have a very important conversation about this family crisis." They'd managed to come up with $12,000 by liquidating retirement accounts and selling Brittany's mom's jewelry, but they desperately needed another $8,000 to hire the criminal defense attorney Madison required. They wanted me to cover the difference as what they called a family investment that would benefit everyone. "Madison's fundamentally a good person," her mom said, while dabbing her eyes with tissues. "She just made one terrible mistake that any of us could have made. She doesn't deserve to have her entire life completely ruined over this." "I completely agree with that assessment," I said calmly. "But this isn't my problem to solve or my responsibility to fix." "But you have the money sitting in savings," Brittany pointed out desperately. $8,000 wouldn't even make a small dent in your savings account balance. Marcus needed $6,000 through no fault of his own, and you said helping him would be throwing money away on poor planning. Madison needs $8,000 because she chose to text while driving and then committed a hit and run. Which one sounds like a better investment to you? Brittany's dad tried appealing to me man to man with shared masculine values. "Look, I know Brittany handled the Marcus situation poorly and unfairly, but when family is in real trouble, family takes care of family. That's what separates us from strangers. Marcus is my family, and I took care of him. Madison isn't my family. You've been with Brittany for almost 3 years. That makes you practically family. And Brittany made it crystal clear that length of relationship doesn't create family obligations when my brother desperately needed help avoiding homelessness." Madison looked up from her pile of tear-soaked tissues. "Please, Derek. I know I messed up really badly, but I'm completely desperate and terrified here. You should have thought about those consequences before texting while driving and then fleeing the scene of an accident. I'll pay you back every single penny with interest. With what income? You'll probably lose your job when they find out about the criminal conviction." The dinner got extremely uncomfortable and tense after that exchange. Brittany barely spoke to me during the awkward drive home, and I could practically see her brain working on whatever manipulation strategy she'd try next. Madison's legal situation completely imploded over the following 3 weeks as the criminal justice system moved forward. She got convicted on the hit and run charges and sentenced to 6 months driver's license suspension, 200 hours of community service, 3 years probation with monthly check-ins, and $12,000 in fines and restitution payments to the victim. No actual jail time, which was honestly lucky for her, but she did lose her job when her employer found out about the criminal conviction during a routine background check. Without steady income, she couldn't afford the $2,200 monthly rent on her expensive downtown apartment with all the trendy amenities. She had to break her lease early, pay substantial penalties, and move all her designer furniture into expensive storage because her childhood bedroom couldn't accommodate everything she'd accumulated. But here's where karma really started working its beautiful magic in ways I couldn't have planned better myself. Brittany's parents were already financially stressed from helping Madison with attorney fees and bail money, and now they had to support her completely while she looked for new employment with a fresh criminal record. Her dad started strongly hinting that maybe Brittany should move back home too to help with household expenses during this family crisis. Suddenly, Brittany was facing the terrifying possibility of losing her incredibly cushy financial setup at my place. No more $450 monthly rent for a house that actually cost me $2,950. No more free utilities, groceries, entertainment subscriptions, and vacations. She'd have to go back to sharing a bathroom with her emotionally unstable sister while listening to Madison complain about her problems all day, every day. "Maybe we could help Madison with just a little bit of money," she suggested tentatively one evening while we watched TV. "Not the whole $8,000, but maybe $3,000 or $4,000 to get her started? Your family's financial problems aren't my responsibility," I replied without looking away from the screen. "Come on, Derek. Don't be like this. Can't you show some compassion?" "I'm being exactly like you taught me to be when my brother needed help. I admitted I was completely wrong about that. Can't you be the bigger person here and move past it?" The bigger person? You threatened to break up with me because I wanted to help my homeless brother. Now you want me to bail out your sister who committed a criminal hit and run? Madison's learned her lesson and feels terrible. Has she really learned anything? Because yesterday I saw her posting Instagram stories about how everything happens for a reason, and the universe is testing her strength. That doesn't sound like someone who's accepted responsibility for their criminal behavior. Last week, Brittany's parents finally dropped the financial hammer that changed everything. They couldn't afford to support both adult daughters anymore, given their own retirement planning needs. Either Brittany needed to move back home immediately and get a real job with steady income to help with family expenses, or she needed to figure out her own living situation without any parental financial support. That's when the real desperate begging started. And honestly, it was both pathetic and deeply satisfying to watch someone face the consequences of their own selfish philosophy. Brittany offered to pay significantly more rent, like $800 monthly instead of $450. She offered to get what she called a real job, with actual steady income instead of her influencer fantasy that generated almost no money. She offered to do all the cooking and cleaning around the house. She even suggested we could set up a detailed payment plan to gradually help Madison with her legal expenses. "I'll do absolutely anything you want," she said with actual tears streaming down her face. "Just please don't make me move back home with my parents and live with Madison's constant drama." Make you? I'm not making you do anything at all. I'm just not solving your family's financial problems like you taught me. But I really do love you. This relationship means everything to me. You love my house and my steady income and the lifestyle I provide. There's a significant difference between that and actually loving me as a person. That's not true at all. Really? When's the last time you paid for dinner when we went out to eat? When's the last time you bought groceries for the house? When's the last time you even filled up your own gas tank without using my credit card? She couldn't answer any of those questions because we both knew the obvious truth. I'd been subsidizing her entire lifestyle for almost a year while she contributed virtually nothing. Your family taught you that love comes with conditions and requirements, I continued calmly. That helping people is optional, based on how convenient it is for your personal situation. Now you get to live with those exact same conditions applied to your circumstances. Marcus moved out to his new apartment last weekend with my help. Kid's doing absolutely fantastic in every way. Got promoted to crew leader with a significant raise, started his heavy equipment training program, and even began dating someone from his training class. Before he left, he thanked me for having his back when nobody else would. "You didn't just help me financially," he said while loading his truck. "You showed me what real family loyalty actually looks like in practice." I'll never forget that. Brittany moved back to her parents' house 3 days ago with all her designer clothes and expensive makeup collection. Before the moving truck arrived, she tried one final desperate approach. "I know I was completely wrong about Marcus and how I handled that situation," she said while packing boxes. "But you're really going to end our entire relationship over this?" "I'm not ending anything at all. Your family's financial problems are just too disruptive for my peaceful sanctuary." I used her exact words from months earlier and watched her face as she realized I was deliberately throwing her own logic back at her. "You're using my own words and logic against me. I'm being perfectly consistent with the boundaries you established for our relationship. If that seems cruel to you, maybe you should consider what that says about your original position when my brother needed help." As I watched her load her designer clothes into the Lexus her wealthy parents bought her, I thought about what Marcus had said. Sometimes people need to learn that actions have real consequences. Brittany and Madison are both living at their parents' house now like teenagers again. Madison's working at Target for $15 an hour while trying to rebuild her life after the criminal conviction destroyed her career prospects. Brittany's doing data entry at her dad's dealership for $18 an hour and posting Instagram stories about new chapters and personal growth journeys while living in her childhood bedroom.